Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for keeping you there, but thank you for your patience. A lot of people that did say they would be late have now come online. Okay, let's get going. Thank you very much for joining us on this webinar this afternoon, especially from those of you around Europe, as far as the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, all the way down as far as Africa, and even one or two from the US. So welcome to you all. Good morning and good afternoon, and good evening in some cases. My name is Vivian Cullen, and I look after the international business development for Pixalert. Today's webinar will be looking at the challenges and changes you face in the PCI version 3, especially in relation to card data environment scoping. The importance of locating the variety and existence of cardholder data on the network, and the best method of remediating and reporting on the findings. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we go any further. The webinar will last approximately 15, maybe 20 minutes. All attendees are on mute, so therefore if you have a question, I would ask if you can put it into the question and answers pane, little window in your control panel. Now, this seems to have gotten stuck there. Here we go. Today's agenda. We will be looking at the changes to PCI version 3 pertaining in particular to the card data environment scoping and data flow requirements. We will touch on the changes and challenges that will impact on auditors. We will tiptoe into the processes of cardholder discovery audits and how they can help meet with the PCI scoping challenges. And finally, the benefits of regular scanning for cardholder information and demonstrating a more efficient and less costly route to becoming PCI compliant. PCI changes have come in many shapes and sizes, but in particular the clarifications and the challenges across the standard. One of these in particular is card scoping and reporting. So we're going to look a little bit at the PCI scoping in an effort to reduce cost, reduce remediation, and reduce cost of compliance and workload. Requirement 0, as it is known, states that organizations embarking on a PCI program have a few tasks to carry out prior to addressing the 12 requirements of the standard. And a large part of this is in actual fact scoping, preparing for the task, if you like, ahead or making plans and doing plans. It states that the first step of a PCI DSS assessment is to accurately determine the scope of the review. It goes on to state that the assessed entity should confirm the accuracy of the PCI DSS scope by identifying all locations and flows of cardholder data, ensuring they are included in the PCI scope. Most importantly, it states that the entities need to verify that no cardholder data exists outside of the currently defined cardholder data environment, or the CDE as we know it. These elements create additional tasks and workloads which puts the strain on resources, so CDE scoping is a crucial part of the first steps of any PCI program. So let's look at requirement 1, where the first change is affected. Most organizations who are engaged in a PCI program are most likely to have a network diagram. But now there is an additional requirement to include that is the the data flow of CHD across the network. This is now mandatory, and to achieve this you need to know where exactly data resides across your entire network, not just sampling, entire network. So a list or a register, if you like, of components where data is found would be very, very handy. Moving on to requirement 2 stipulates the need for an inventory or components in scope. Components containing CHD, or components which have an IT need to contain cardholder data, perhaps components with a business need to possess such information. Organizations do have a need for certain devices to have cardholder data as it may be part of maybe a business process. Like requirement 1, you need to know where exactly the CHD resides across your entire network. Then you need to ascertain how it got there, where it came from, and if there is a business requirement to continue having that information there. If there's not a business requirement, you need to conduct remedial works and provide evidential proof of actions taken and a follow-up scan of the cardholder data to prove successful remedial works and enabling you to eliminate the removal of this particular part of your assets from scope. Requirement 3 then moves on to the data itself, and that is that it states that Requirement 3 continues on considerable amount of tasks both for cardholder data and the control of cardholder data. It goes into how much data can be stored, where it can be stored, what data can be stored, how it is stored, and most importantly, that once it is deleted, it is rendered unrecoverable. This requirement validation or evidence, or a log if you like, of actions taken to remove findings from scope and render it unrecoverable. Let me jump away up to requirement 9. Requirement 9 of the scope, this part of your scoping project covers secure delete, secure wipe. If cardholder data is found, then it is important to be able to reduce the scope and removing this data. In order to reduce scope, a thorough scan of the card data will reveal components on the network storing such information. Conducting a secure delete will ensure cardholder data is unrecoverable. This is of course a goal of the standards. However, your goal is to comply in an efficient and most importantly a cost-effective manner. The small changes of CHD scoping. The changes to the standard regarding CHD scoping have been small, but without correct scope reduction or descoping as we know it, have the ability of creating additional workloads, and it will naturally increase the cost and therefore meet with resistance from management. It is important therefore to reduce scope of compliance to lower the strain on internal resources such as the practitioners of the standard, to reduce the remediation scheme, thus reducing workloads, and of course management would always say yes to that. So what's needed is a discovery solution that will introduce the card discovery processes that will provide you with a manageable and verifiable process for defining your scope. After all, to protect data, you must know where it is. So what does a CHD solution need to offer you as a user? You need to have out-of-the-box functionality, giving you manual controls where needed and automated controls to reduce the workload. A reduction in false positives. The lower the false positive rate, as we know, the more successful and more cost-effective a program is going to be. You need to get meaningful reports that can be used in your gap analysis. You need to be provided with a gateway or a pathway to remediation schemes. Manageable CSV reports, which you can include in your audit, but also to give you an insight into the assets for your asset register. Categorization of findings, in particular with the severities appearing first on the list. Having a secure delete function means that you're going to conform with the PCI DSS requirements. Automated functionality to reduce workload, cost, and risk. And finally, to provide evidential proof that data, and this is probably most importantly, does not exist outside of the cardholder environment. So what is this data that we're looking for? What are PANs and what does CHD discovery mean? Well, basically, it is very, very simply defined by the standard itself, as you can see in this table. And if anyone needs a copy of this, you will find it in the original standard document. But if not, let me know and we can send you over a copy. So we need to find a solution that will address all these processes in a planned approach to scoping your environment. So what do we need from this tool? We need to be able to detect information in sorry, my button is sticking here, so apologies for the late appearance on the screen. Detect cardholder data across the entire network. You can also pick selected targets if you're doing a review or a rescan for remediation purposes to clarify that remediation has taken place. Categorization. We need to be able to automate this process, and this is something that can be done very, very easily. We then need to be able to remediate, and having a simple, straightforward pathway to be able to do that. Reports that can be used, as we said earlier, in gap analysis, and also for PCI audit reporting. And then to validate, probably the most important thing of all, validate where data is across the network. So from there, what do we need the tool to do? It's very, very straightforward. At this point, I'll just introduce very, very briefly our card auditor, which fulfills all these requirements. And to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, here's some of the reports that we can output from that particular product. You'll see here that we have a policies report basing our severities on track data, which, as we know, cannot be stored or should not be stored. So if it's found, it's obviously the most severe data you can find, and then you can see you can categorize it down along the line there. We can then categorize by target type. These are just some of the sample reports that can come out of this solution. There are additional output reports in this tool. This is just a sample to demonstrate some of the more automated tasks that you should really expect from a CHD discovery tool. At this point, we're nearly at the end of our presentation now, so thank you for your patience. I do have a number of questions coming in, so just bear with me, and I'm going to bring some of these questions up. Okay. Okay, very quickly, the first question in on my list here is, can the product scan email for PANS? Yes, indeed, it does. It scans Exchange. Another question here. Sorry, I have something across my screen here that's after popping up a pop-up. Does the verification of where data resides mean that the sampling is no longer needed? Well, I think most QSAs or internal auditors will be of the opinion that sampling is just a sample set. It doesn't give 100% verification of where data may or may not be across the network. So I would imagine that the answer to that should probably be that sampling is probably on the way out. I would like to think it's on the way out, certainly from a commercial perspective, but from the point of view of being thorough in one's search for data and in one's application towards becoming compliant, I would say yes, sampling should be probably eradicated. A very interesting question here. Does CHD Discovery remove the need for interviews and sampling again in relation to scoping? I don't think it does remove the need for interviews, because it may even increase the need for interviews, because if data is found outside of an environment or an area with access to someone who doesn't have access, well then that probably would evoke another interview for someone who probably wasn't going to be interviewed to begin with. Have I any other questions here? Let me see. There are a few questions in, a lot of them actually going back to scanning emails, a lot of email scans requests. How do you verify where data give you out? Our solution will give you out a tool, or sorry, a report, a CFE report, telling you exactly where the data is across the network. Okay, I believe you may have been without the screen there for a few minutes because of that pop-up. My apologies if you were. Okay. Now, just to finish off, there's another couple of questions there, but they're all referring back again to verification and processes. I would like, by all means, if you'd like to join me afterwards, I would go one-on-one with people if they are interested in doing a short demonstration of the product. There's a couple of people actually asking for trials. Well, you can see here that there are 5 free card auditor licenses for each of you who fill up our questionnaire straight after this presentation. So by all means, feel free to do that, and you'll get a real trial. It won't be a trial. It'll be a real product we'll give you to trial in your environment. Another question just came in there. Same again, actually, yes. Probably just a couple of delays. That's all I have. I hope you enjoyed this afternoon. I hope it was in some way fruitful for you. I do know that we have a lot of people attending here at the moment. So yes, I will endeavour to get back to you all. Again, my name is Vivian Cullen, and if you have any more questions, there's my email and my contact details. Please feel free to contact me anytime. Thank you again.